Welcome everybody to another edition of TEW 2020 as we're getting our TCW 2016 in TEW 20 save as we're at TCW Malice in Wonderland, first big pay-per-view of the year. So let's get rolling as we're in front of over 30,000 people in Las Vegas, Nevada. As we start with our opening video, which just goes over the big feuds of the pay-per-view, including Rocky Golden versus Aaron Andrews for the world title, Wolf Hawkins versus Joshua Taylor to determine who's the best wrestler in TCW, and sort of a default number one contendership match, and Ricky Dale Johnson returning to take on American Buffalo. This gets a 79, solid opening video, and go to our first match, which is in a 63 and about had decent action on the crowd with subpar wrestling. Human Arsenal defeated Brent Hill in 1404, breaking 12 the ammo drop. This gets a 63, Arsenal gets a 61, Brent Hill gets a 58. Basically, I put Arsenal over because he's a little bit younger than Hill, and we've seen enough heels controlling the baby faces, so I want to do something slightly different. So remember the step of this match is that Arsenal, it was Arsenal versus Hill, and the winner gets to basically control the other's career. And, because basically Hill wanted Arsenal to return to the dark side, and Arsenal agreed just to shut him up. And so let's get 63, and then a quick post-match promo. Arsenal basically says, I'm not going to be some asshole who's going to tell you what to do, Hill, but I'll be watching you, so you better, and I'll step in if need be, but I'm letting you go, but you better change your ways. Because I've changed my stripes, so can you. And then Arsenal just sort of walks away. So this gets a 60, solid promo. Then we move on to our next match, which is in a poor match. Flying Jimmy Fox and Giant Tana defeated the Elite, the New Wave, and the Canadian Animals in 10:07, or elimination was the Elite first, then the Canadian Animals, then finally the New Wave. Probably was New Wave getting eliminated by Canadian Animals, then the Canadian Animals. What can you do? Anyway, this gets a 65, Ed Stone gets a 61, Freddie Hawkins gets a 60, Nate Johnson gets a 54, Eddie Chandler gets a 60, Scout gets a 68, Guide gets a 69, Giant Tana gets a 55, and Flying Jimmy Fox gets a 58. Solid win for the makeshift team of Fox and Tana, because basically, I wanted to put somebody over, slightly newer, and just figure out what we can do here. Anyway, this gets 65, like I said. And then in the post-match, the babyface is celebrating gets a 54. Then we have a quick segment where basically Bart Biggins in ring says, he was told to come out here for a match. He doesn't know who he's facing. And then all of a sudden, the lights go out, lights come back on, and Eddie Peak is in the ring. And Bart reacts how a babyface should react to scary Eddie Peak being in the ring and goes after him, but that's not going to go well, as this gets a 62, and the actual match is an about the action from the crowd, but subpar wrestling. Eddie Peak defeats Bart Biggins in 5:49 by pinfall, the Peak of Perfection. This gets a 58, Peak gets a 66, Bart Biggins 59, just a quick squash, because Peak can, just to give Peak the big win, not the big win, but a win on pay-per-view to keep his momentum up, because his actual feud will probably begin in a couple weeks here, so but I didn't want him to come off the pay-per-view, so Biggins gets the job. Like I said, this gets a 58. Then Peak celebrating, looking scary and celebrating, gets a 57. Then in our match, remember, the winner of the match, regardless of what happens here, these two cannot be in a match together, in a single match together, for all of 2016. And in about that decent for the crowd with subpar wrestling, Mighty Mo defeats Jay Chord in a Last Man Standing match in 13:27 when Jay Chord cannot beat the 10 count. This gets a 67, Chord gets a 66, Mighty Mo gets a 60. So I think most people would have put Chord over here, but this gives Mighty Mo a big win. It gives him the big babyface win, gives him the feud, and Chord can quickly rebuild himself. And like I said, that gets a 67. Mo celebrating afterwards as Chord is just out on the ground, gets a 56. Then in our tag title match, didn't have much heat and terrible wrestling. Ouch. The Behemoths defeated Divine Fortune in 7:41 when Killer Shark pinned Daryl Divine with the big bite. This gets a 54, just a quick squash with the Behemoths. Fortune gets a 54, Divine gets a 60, Titan gets a 52, Killer Shark gets a 46, and the Behemoths celebrating gets a 63. So just, quick squash for the Behemoths to, keep them rolling on. And then Haley Buck intros her, the newcomer to 12 Championship Wrestling, and her new charge, Nilsen Callum. Now, just put over, Callum has been a star on the independent circuit for the last couple of years, including in Pittsburgh Steel Wrestling. And Callum takes the mic, says, it's pathetic that all these, meth head, weirdo, gamblers, and freaks here in Las Vegas will be the one that witness my debut in 12 Championship Wrestling, but prepare to witness greatness. So this gets a 42, and Callum's gimmick gets a very good, so good stuff. And then in his opening match, In a poor match, Nelson Callum defeated Danny Fonzarelli in 10:29 by submission with the honey trap after, it says interference from Haley Buck. Basically, Buck distracts Fonzarelli, Callum hits a big suplex, then locks in the honey trap to get the submission victory. So this gets a 63, Callum gets a 62, and Fonzarelli gets a 62. And then Callum and Buck celebrating gets a 51. Then we move on to our international title match, as in about a decent reaction from the crowd, but subpar wrestling. Marc Speed defeats Benny Benson in 15:28 by submission with a cross arm breaker, and Speed makes defense number 1 of his international title. So again, back and forth match. Benson does his best, because he's been a hot streak. Hits a few hot moves, but Speed comes back with kicks and strikes, and in the end locks Benson in the cross arm breaker cleanly and gets the tap out victory. 69, really good match. Benson gets 62, Speed gets a 66. And then Speed keeping the hold on for a couple minutes before breaking it when the referee sort of taps him on the shoulder, gets a 61. Then, in a good match, Sammy Back defeats Brian Vesey by pinfall in 1932. So back and forth match, but Vesey gets the suplexes, but Back comes back and gets out of one of the Vesey's huge suplexes, hits his own, then hits a huge basically goes up top. He has, because he's getting a little older, he's able to hit the Frankensteiner off the top rope and get the pinfall victory over Brian Vesey. This gets an 80. Vesey gets a 74. Back gets a 73. And big win for Simon Back. And post-match, Back celebrates and Vesey goes crazy. That gets a 72. And now it's really getting fun here, as in our match from the top, which gets 72. About that good heat and subpar wrestling, Ricky Dale Johnson defeated American Buffalo in 11:37 by pinfall to Southern Justice. This gets a 72, and RGJ gets a big win. RGA gets a 70, American Buffalo gets a 54. So unfortunately for you, Buffalo, back to the mid card with you. You had your shot. And then post match, to sort of really end the feud, RDJ hits the big Southern Justice move, which I'll have to pull up Wrestling Spirit and try to figure out what that is. And hits it on Goldberg to a big pop from the crowd and a 56. And now we're finally down to the 7-minute main event and the main event. So let's get rolling. As in about that great heat and good wrestling, Wolf Hawkins defeats Joshua Taylor in a submission match in 29:32 by submission. This gets an 83. Hawkins gets an 82. Taylor gets a 72. And, Taylor actually gets the butterfly lock on. But near the end of the match, but it's too close for the ropes each time, and each time Hawkins is barely able to get to the ropes and break it. But in the end, Hawkins is able to get a variation of a crossface on right in the middle of the ring, and there's no for Taylor to go, so finally he has to submit right in the middle of the ring. So this gets an 83, and Hawkins celebrating afterwards gets a 74. So Hawkins gets the huge win, and, it looks like he might be, set up for a chance to win back the world title after a little while of not having it around his waist. And now it's main event time. And yes, and an 80, which, a little worse than I thought, but, really good still. And Neville had great heat and good wrestling. Aaron Andrews defeats Rocky Golden in 1945 by pinfall with an aces high. And Andrews makes defense number 1 of his TCW World Title. So again, back and forth match. Golden goes for the Rocky Road, but Andrews avoids it. And, near the end of the match, Golden has finally got him ready. But Andrews slips out, aces high, which is basically just an RKO. Pinfall, 1, 2, 3, right in the middle of the ring. Golden kicks out at basically 3.2, but, that's too late. And Andrews has a huge victory over, the franchise of Total Championship Wrestling. As this gets an 80, Golden gets an 83, Andrews gets a 74. And Andrews celebrates, afterwards gets a 71. So the show itself gets a 79. Good stuff. So we'll go ahead and we'll give Joshua Taylor some props. We'll give Sammy Bach some props. We'll give Brian Vesey some props. And actually, we'll give Nelson Taylor. So we'll see what sort of mail we have, and then we'll be off to Title Belt Wrestling. Not Title Belt Wrestling. What am I saying? Tuesday. Title Belt Wrestling is the name of the CGC. I can't believe that was dumb of me. Okay. And we'll also double check our money. All right, let's see here. So yeah, we got a 79. PGW got a 91 because it was these guys, of course. Interesting. Anyway, so let's look at our mail here real quick. Let's see here. We finished second, which is good. So we got 1,000 buys. And let's just check out the popularity real quick of a couple people. So Andrews, let's see here. Okay, so he took a big bump, so that's good. Let's see here. How did Rocky do? Rocky did not take much of a drop at all. Let's see here. Wolf stayed about the same. Let's see, did the Taylor get hurt a lot by that? Or I hope he like actually helped. Let's see here. Popularity. Taylor. Okay, Taylor actually improved. That's good. Let's see here. Mighty Mo. Mighty Mo jumped a point. Okay. And J Court. Okay, dropped a couple of points, but I can easily rebuild that. What was the other thing? Oh, Nelson. Let's see how he did real quick in this first match. And yeah, Callum jumped 5 points in his debut, so that's good. Let's see here. Sammy back. Okay, 3 points. That's good. And let's see. Vesey dropped a point. All right. Is there anything else I really cared about? Let's see here. Was there any other big matches? No, I think that's it. Oh, let's just look at Ricky Dale. Let's see. Popularity. Okay, RDJ is about to say. Cool. Okay. Okay, so I'll be back in just a second with the next Total Wrestling as we begin the road towards Settle the Score. So I'll be back with that in just a moment. Alright, it's now time for TCW Total Wrestling in the aftermath of Malice in Wonderland, and we start with a Wolf Hawkins promo, basically, you know, saying that he should be the number one contender because he just beat Joshua Taylor in a classic submission match. Well, RTJ comes out and says he just had a wild brawl with American Buffalo last night, and he laid him flat on the ground. He deserves to be the number one contender for the last run. Wolf Hawkins calls him old. RTJ fires back, call him, you're still in Tommy's shadow. They continue to argue, and they finally agree to a match next week at Total Wrestling to determine who is the number one contender. And this gets a 94 because both these guys are really good at promos. Hot, good stuff. Then we have in our opening match, as in an abysmal match, ouch, Matt Hawking defeats Eddie Chandler 902 by pinfall the Hawk Shock. I don't know what that is, probably some kind of kick or like moonsault or something. Anyway, good one for Hawking as he gets the win over the veteran Chandler. This gets a 50. They didn't click, unfortunately. Chandler's skill gets a 48, and Hawking gets a 38. Not the end of the world, but a pretty solid match. Then Hawking celebrating gets a 46. Sammy Bach promo gets a 68. Basically says, you know, he's proved once again that despite the fact he's the underdog, he defeated Brian Vesey right in the middle of the ring, and there's nothing Vesey can say about it. He can free out all he wants, but you know, he did his best last night, and he played the right chords, and he rocked out. You know, he rocked the ring, and now he's moving on to bigger and better things. This gets a 68. Perfectly solid promo. Then in a terrible match, ouch, Nelson Callum defeated Dazzling Dave Diamond in 555 by submission with the Honey Trap. This gets a 62. Callum gets a 60. Dazzling Dave Diamond gets a 53. As after, you know, successfully debuting on Malice in Wonderland, Callum gets another win, and a solid win at that over Dazzling Dave Diamond. And Callum and Buck celebrate afterwards to a 51. Then we're to our next match, as in a poor match, Fox and Tana defeated the Canadian Animals in 11:42 when Tana pinned Freddie Huggins back and forth match, but Fox and Tana get the big win over the Canadian Animals, and this gets a 64, Stone gets a 60, Huggins gets a 60, Johnny Tana gets a 55, and finally Jimmy Fox gets a 61. So solid win for the babyfaces as they get another win over a tag team, and afterwards Fox and Tana celebrate to the cheers of the crowd, and a 53. Again, good solid stuff as we continue on. As Troy Tornado gets a promo saying, you know, it was pathetic that he wasn't on Malice in Wonderland last night, and he's going to shock the world tonight, defeating Rocky Golden. As Rocky, you already showed the world last night you're not the ace anymore when you lost to Andrews. Well, I'm going to show you that you don't deserve to be in main events anymore. 74, solid promo. Tornado's really still good at promos despite being a little older. And then in a about a decent round in the crowd with Sapar Wrestling, Danny Fonzarelli defeated Brent Hull in 12:23 by a pinfall roll-up. So what happens here is basically, you know, Hill's in the ring and he's doing typical heel things when Human Arsenal comes out to watch him, and Hill has to like actually wrestle cleanly. And since he hasn't done that in actually years, Fonzarelli's gonna make a comeback and actually get the pinfall with a roll-up, and you know, gets the big win over Brent Hill. So this gets a 63. Hill gets a 55. Fonzarelli gets a 60. And Hill is upset and sort of points at Arsenal at ringside, and that gets a 57. And then we have a backstage angle. Well, Joshua Taylor's backstage when Jay Cord sort of confronts him and says, you know, you had a chance to become number one contender last night, you blew it. Well, Joshua Taylor's like, why are you talking to me like that? You know, you lost that night. You lost your big feud last night. You got your ass kicked, Cord. So quit being a little punk. Cord says, I might be a punk, but at least I'm not a bitch who lost to Hawkins. And they sort of continue to argue. And okay, get to 74. Good stuff. And then in about a decount from the crowd, but subpar wrestling, Mighty Mo defeated Hugh Marshall 15-21 by pinfall of plunging spinebuster. Good solid babyface matches. You know, both guys go back and forth, but in the end, Mighty Mo is a little younger, a little faster, and a little better as he gets the big pinfall victory. This gets a 62. Mighty Mo got a 58. Arsenal got a 62. And then after the match, there's a handshake to a crowd pop, which gets a 55. Then we got a promo with Aaron Andros, who basically says that he doesn't care who he faces. You know, he's the true ace of Total Championship Wrestling. Wolf has to realize it's not, you know, the syndicate is done. It's the time of the ace. And RDJ, well, buddy, Cowboy's on his last run, and he might have to put him down. 74, solid promo. Now it's main event time. And then a 72, ouch. In a bout had great heat and decent wrestling, Rocky Golden defeated Trey Tornado. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, God dang it. Okay, that's my fault. So what should have happened here is, so this, by count, what really happened is Eddie Peak runs in out of nowhere and he begins attacking Rocky Golden, so he wins by DQ. This gets a 72, Golden gets an 83, Tornado gets a 55, Tornado sitting bruised buttocks, that's hilarious. And yeah. And then post-match, yep, I know. Rocky Golden beat new high spot. So, okay, so what I imagine is Golden had him in the Rocky Road when Rocky Golden runs in, but I'll figure out something for another new move for him to do. But then Peak destroys Golden, so just like attacks him, sends him through the barrier at ringside, and just leaves him laying as the show ends, as the announcers try to put over that Eddie Peak has just destroyed a former world champion, and this gets a 77, and the show overall gets a 76. Not our best show, but, you know, this was just more of a rebuilding show to sort of, like, put some people on TV, build up some new stars, and, you know, sort of create things. Like, again, probably have to, like, I sort of probably didn't put enough, like, good wrestlers on the show last, like, you know, there was no random, top star versus mid-carder that gets a random 80 because they're really good in the ring, which I'll have to figure out. Okay, so 0.87, which compared to our last, okay, so dropped a little bit, but not the end of the world. And if we look at our mail, yeah. Oh, yeah, let's look at medical. I'm sure it's just out. Yeah, 6 days. Okay, no big deal. All right, so we have one more. We have one more Total Wrestling to go through, so I'll be back with that in just a moment, and that'll be the end of the video for today. So I'll be back with you in just a moment. Alright, let's start off with our last edition of Total Wrestling for those videos. That's second week of February as we're live from Seattle, Washington. And we open up with Eddie Peak in his boiler room, basically cutting his Why Did He Attack Rocky Golden promo. And it's basically, you know, Golden, you were being sent to the top while I was being dangerous and violent. And we have crossed before in this realm, but not while I've been in this form of destruction. And I know they say rocks are hard, but I know you're gooey, so gooey inside, Golden. I'm going to make you bleed. I'm going to destroy you. Because that's what I've been told to do by those beyond. And this gets a 73. Solid scary promo from Peak, and sort of sets up that feud. Then we have our opening match, where in about a decent action from the crowd with subpar wrestling, Marc Speed defeated Chance Fortune in 12:08 by submission with a cross arm breaker. They had great chemistry. This gets a 66. Fortune gets a 56. Speed gets 66. You know, back and forth match, but Speed's a little better and locks on the cross arm breaker. And Speed keeps hold on, but Mighty Mo runs in and makes a save, which gets a 56. Then we have a backstage promo with RDJ, which gets an 84. As at Wolf, we've got a long history between each other, but I'm not going to go over that. Everybody knows it. But at the end of the day, this is about tonight, and I'm a little older, but I still have one last ride in me. So I'll get past you. Then Andrews, we want to talk about you're the ace. Well, son, you never faced me 1-on-1, so let's get rolling on that. And this gets an 84. Solid promo. RDJ is pretty good at this. Then we have an in-ring where a match where about to detract from the crowd, but subpar wrestling. Benny Benson defeated Ed Stone 12:51 by pinfall. This gets a 67. Stone gets a 60. Benson gets a 63. They've got great chemistry, and again, solid win for Benson as he makes the comeback from losing his speed at the pay-per-view. And then Benson celebrating gets a 60 as well. Then about decent crowd with subpar wrestling, Brian Vesey basically tore apart Bart Biggins in 8:22, locking, just suplexing around, locking with submission, holding in the victory. This gets a 66. Vesey gets a 70. Bart Biggins gets a 56. And then Vesey has a promo saying, back you've continued to get lucky. Well, next time I get you in the ring, I'm going to tear you apart bit by bit, and nobody's able to stop me. No referees, no CW officials. I'm going to show you that I'm the greatest wrestler in the world. 63, not the worst promo, but not the best promo either. Then we go backstage with Wolf Hawkins, which gets a 79. Wolf, basically says, promising I should be ace of TCW. Andrews, you've gotten lucky. You've been on a hot run, but you're making it on a hot run for a couple months, as opposed to years of excellence from somebody like me. I was built from the ground up to be the face of Total Championship Wrestling, and I'm not going to let you take that away from me. So enjoy that title, but you still have it, because this Wolf is back on the prowl. 79, solid promo. Then in a bout that a good heat in East Wrestling, Joshua Taylor defeated Troy Tornado in 15-10 by submission with a butterfly lock. So 69, not quite as good as I thought. I thought it was going to be a little bit better. But, back and forth match, Tornado does his best to fight and brawl, but, Taylor fights back with his moves, back and forth match. But in the end, Taylor locks in the butterfly lock, locks it in, there's nowhere for Tornado to go, and that gets a 69. So Taylor gets a 69, Tornado gets a 61, solid match. And then post-match, Jay Chord runs in, goes for a cradle pile driver, but Taylor is able to get out of it, backdrop Chord to the outside, then go and basically then do a suicide drive through the ropes on the Chord, and the brawl continues. And this gets a 61, solid stuff. As we have a new feud going on here. The next up we have the Pumas basically confronting Fox and Tana, basically telling them TCW officials managed to tell us that you're the number one contenders. Well, that just means you're the next on our kill list. And they sort of turn the corner. Tony Tana stands up to him, says, I may have to smile, but I grew up in Samoa. I learned to fight, so I'm not scared of you. And Jimmy can fly over and hit you before you get a shot. He can be a butterfly that stings like a bee. Yeah, that's mixed metaphors, but what can you do? So that's sort of our first official match for the next pay-per-view. It's for the tag team titles. It's going to be Behemoths versus Fox and Tana. Obviously, there's other matches that basically are set up, but not quite official. So, go ahead and add that. Yeah, I know. So, there we go. And then, it's main event time, as in about that great heat and good wrestling. Wolf Hawkins drew with RDJ in 30 minutes when the time had expired. So again, this is another classic match. Back and forth, RDJ hits a Southern Justice, hits a lariat, but Wolf Hawkins kicks out. Wolf Hawkins, gets his big moves, even tries to lock in his new crossface submission, but RDJ gets to the ropes. He goes for the big, I'm blanking on his finisher, but you guys have heard it before, but RDJ, moves out of that. RDJ fights back and, goes down to a brawl, but then, RDJ hits a huge spine buster. Looks like he's going for a lariat, but Hawkins, it gets him in the crossface submission again. RGD fights out of it, and they're just fighting and brawling and hitting big moves at the end when the time limit, when it reaches the time limit, and the bell rings for the expires. So, great heat, good wrestling, gets an 80. Hawkins gets an 88. RGD gets a 68. They have great chemistry, so that's good, and match got the crowd hotter, so good stuff. So then, after the match, there's a stare down, these two arguing. Well, Andrews comes out and says, well, I need to prove I'm the ace of this company. So regardless of whether, I face you, I easily defeat you one-on-one, because I'm proving, Wolf, that you are always being held up to the top by, people with power, not tracked with skill. And RGJ, you were a great wrestler once, but it's not 2010 anymore. But at Word is Gonna Score, I will prove I'm the ace of TCW by defeating you both in a three-way dance. Big crowd pop for that, as both RDJ and Wolf agree, and then we go off the air. So this gets a 79. So again, that sets up the big match for the pay-per-view. Big main event. Wolf, RJ, Aaron Andrews for the world title. And obviously, like, I'm just going to add this match because, like, it's sort of obvious this is also happening. So we'll go ahead and add that. Nope, that's, yeah. And there we go. So, yeah, there's our sort of big matches. Golden Peak, Fox and versus Behemoth, well, not really big match, and the big three-way for the world title. And then we finish the show, and we get a 78. So, good stuff. Like, again, not, like, a fantastic show, but, you know, a really good show. Probably helped by that, like, 30-minute drop. Probably would have been better if it went, like, 20 minutes, but, I wanted, like, big matches have long time limits. And RJ still is able to wrestle for 30 minutes, so that's okay. Let's see here. Let's just see here. Supreme TV got an 80. Crippler and Eric Eisinger with Brad and James Jen. Joey Morgan, Aaron Gilmore defeating Squeaky McLean, and Jack Bruce defeating Roger Cage. And Valiant defeating Frederic got an 84, which is probably our best match of the show. That's it. That's interesting. Okay, fun stuff. Again, just a quick check of our storylines is we've got our main event storylines at an 80. Hill Arsenal is at a 63. Vesey Back is at a 71. Cord Taylor's at a 77. Pete Golden's at a 71. And Speed Mo is at a 64. So solid stuff. And again, if we look at our creative real quick, so Golden, Hawkins, RDJ are our top 3. Chord, Mighty Mo, Nelson Callum, top 3. Who's hot is Vesey, Speed, Golden, Hawkins, RDJ. Who's not is these guys, so kind of need to rebuild some of these folks. I mean, not really rebuild Brian since he's old. Fun's really sort of like our, sort of your classic, funny jobber. Buffalo's getting older, but still want to push him a bit. And Arsenal, our Hill are around. So yeah, solid stuff. But yeah, so I mean, we're really building. The other stuff, sort of other matches are should be sort of obvious where they're going. But that's it for now. So if you enjoyed this, go and give it a like. Comment below what you're enjoying and not enjoying. Subscribe to the channel for lots of TW 2020 content, including this. The other part of my Cornellverse weekends, which is East Coast Wars of 1997, my WCW 2001 save, now heading towards Mayhem 2003 and Starrcade 2003, WCW 1993, no Eric Bischoff, and of course MLW 2005. That's it for now. So talk to you later, and adios.